Yo, it is Bismuth Hertz, and today I wanted to talk a little bit about Taiwan. So, a lot of people seem to think that Taiwan is another Ukraine. I'm going to disagree on that, and we will get into why. I want to present to you some opposing viewpoints, and I want you to decide what makes the most sense to you. Let's get into this. So the first thing is very clear. America wants to set up a proxy war in Taiwan. Look at this audacity. The Taiwan Strait between Taiwan and mainland China. The US put a warship through this strait. The audacity to do this. The audacity to do this. And look at this. The US has approved 1.8 billion sale of weapons to Taiwan. So they're selling weapons to Taiwan. And they are training Taiwanese how to use these weapons. So America is trying to set up a proxy war in Taiwan. This much is very clear, very obvious. Okay, now I'm going to present the Chinese perspective on this. This is the Chinese military publication. An article, it says, Taiwan question and Ukraine issue, not the same thing, by Hu Wenli. So I'm going to read this whole article to you. As the Russia-Ukraine conflict comes to a stalemate, some people with ulterior motives begin to turn their eyes to China. In March, the Biden administration sent an inter-party delegation to Taiwan Island, where the one-time chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Mike Mullen, expressed to the Democratic Progressive Party, the DPP, authorities, the America's support. I can't say that I know the exact politics of it, but the DPP really are the pro-separatists. So the DPP vowed its support and concerns over the Taiwan Strait multiple times. It's clear that Washington wants to contain China through Taiwan, while Taiwan dreamed of seeking independence with Uncle Sam's backing. And they jointly came up with the fallacy that what happens in Ukraine today will happen to Taiwan tomorrow, each harboring its own calculations. As China's Vice Foreign Minister Lei Yucheng said, there is no comparison between the Taiwan question and the Ukraine issue. Some people emphasize the respect for Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity, but blatantly trample upon China's sovereignty and territorial integrity by crossing the one China line when it comes to the Taiwan question. That is an outright double standard. So what are the differences between the Taiwan question and the Ukraine issue? The two cannot be mentioned in the same breath, either from a historical perspective or in terms of international law. There is a long and complicated history through which Ukraine has become what it is today. Unlike that, Taiwan has become an inalienable part of China since ancient times, with a consistent territory and cultural tradition. Starting from the 12th century, Chinese dynasties have successfully set up administrative regions in Taiwan to exercise jurisdiction, and the local society has carried on the traditional Chinese culture, which wasn't even disrupted or shattered during Japan's colonial rule after the First Sino-Japanese War in 1894. When China won the War of Resistance against Japanese aggression in 1945, the Chinese government resumed administrative organization in the Taiwan province. Even though the KMT forces' retreat to the island in 1949 separated it from the motherland for a while, reunification across the Taiwan Straits has always been the common wish of people living on both sides. As far as international law is concerned, Ukraine is a sovereign state. This is a fact universally acknowledged by the international community, including the UN, on whose official website Ukraine is recorded as one of the founding members. As of December 2019, the country had established diplomatic relations with 183 countries, including China. Its sovereignty is recognized by Russia as the two sides established diplomatic ties in 1991 after the disintegration of the Soviet Union, but that broke off as the war broke out between them in February of this year. In contrast, Taiwan has always been a Chinese province and has never been a sovereign state. Due to the interference of external forces, China's seat at the UN was occupied by the Republic of China before 1971. But as the People's Republic of China grew stronger with greater international influence, on October 25, 1971, 23 countries, including Albania and Algeria, filed a motion to the UN General Assembly to restore all the lawful rights of the PRC in the United Nations and immediately expel the representatives of the Chiang Kai-shek clique from the United Nations and all its affiliated agencies. The motion proceeded to pass with an overwhelming majority of votes, 76 for, 35 against, 17 abstain. This historical moment established China in a new international position. From then on, the international community recognized the One China principle, which means that there is but one China in the world, Taiwan is part of China, and the PRC is the only legitimate government representing the whole of China. The One China principle is built on an unshakable and indisputable factual and legal basis. All countries have established or resumed diplomatic relations with China on the premise of recognizing this principle. Two chess pieces at different places on America's chessboard. Why are some people so eager to bring together the Ukraine issue and the Taiwan question? According to Zhao Hirong, a researcher at and the director of Research Office of Ukraine Studies at the Institute of Russian, Eastern European, and Central Asian Studies, Chinese Academy of Social Sciences, there may be three reasons. First, they want to elevate Taiwan's political position and international influence and create the misperception that Taiwan is also a sovereign state. Second, they want to meddle in China's internal affairs and internationalize its domestic issues with the goal of disrupting its pace of national reunification. Third, they attempt to deteriorate the development environment for China and clear the way for America to continue pushing its hegemony. It is wrong to make a comparison between the Taiwan question and the Ukraine question in any aspect, but they do have something in common. Both are chess pieces on America's chessboard, but at different places. Francis Sempa, author of Geopolitics from the Cold War to the 21st Century, analyzed that Ukraine is just a tool used by the US to contain Russia and balance Europe, whereas Taiwan is a strategic position on the first island chain in the West Pacific that the US can use to curb China's rise. But chess pieces may easily be abandoned whenever America's core interests come into play. Before the Russia-Ukraine war broke out, NATO snubbed Kyiv's application to join. After the war broke out, Biden repeatedly declared his decision not to send a single soldier to Ukraine. While both America and NATO kept denouncing Russia for destroying peace, they themselves have been sending weapons and equipment to Ukraine. In the eyes of observers, as far as America is concerned, Taiwan is just as easily dispensable as Ukraine whenever its core interests are on the line. So, that is the Chinese view on this situation. Now, the American press wants you to think that China is split, that Taiwan is not part of China, and that Taiwan is willing to fight on a national sovereignty independence basis, and that the separatists in Taiwan will hold that decisive power. And because of this idea, they want to compare the military of Taiwan with the PLA mainland. This is a Pentagon report. Data from this Pentagon report says the PLA has a strength of 1.04 million troops. Taiwan only has 88,000 ground forces. PLA has 7,000 artillery pieces. Taiwan only has 800 tanks. China mainland has 32 destroyers, 48 frigates, 56 diesel-powered attack subs, 57 medium landing ships and amphibious transport docks, as well as 2 aircraft carriers, much of which are stationed in the Taiwan theater. Taiwan's navy only has 4 destroyers, 22 frigates, and 2 submarines. Taiwan has 23 Coast Guard ships. China has 223. China's Air Force has 700 fighters, 250 of its 450 bombers and attack aircrafts, and 100 of its 150 special mission aircraft stationed near Taiwan. Taiwan's Air Force has 400 fighters, no bombers and attack aircraft, and 30 special mission aircraft. Further, the PLA has not just numbers, but they have modernized their technology to a very great extent. Though Taiwan has modernized, the comparison in terms of technical quality is still there as well. So overall, pragmatically speaking, Taiwan would be best just to surrender. They would be best off just to surrender. They are unlikely to win this kind of conflict. Now, what is the Western press saying that Taiwan should do in its situation of weakness? Well, they want Taiwan to do urban guerrilla warfare, basically. They want to wage a similar proxy war in Taiwan to the one that they are currently waging in Ukraine. They want to send weapons to Taiwan and grind the Taiwanese to dust for the sake of American hegemony. This is their cope. This is their cope. They say Taiwan needs a Maoist military. Well, what the hell is Maoism in this context? Well, it basically means guerrilla warfare. They're not talking about real Maoism. So, give up and become Maoists, okay? And they want them to become Maoists, as in guerrilla fighters fighting for liberal democracy and national independence. I don't know about this one, guys. I do not know about this one. So they're admitting that Taiwan is weak. They're admitting that Taiwan will probably lose. They say Taiwan can win a war with China. And they think that Maoist guerrilla warfare will save them. So this is a propaganda video produced by Al Jazeera that was basically advocating for Ukraine to do the same thing. So let's see.
Kyiv is the objective for Russia, and it has been since day one.
This is completely inaccurate. Kyiv was a feint. It was only designed to redirect the force and use up the force of Ukraine so that eastern Ukraine, Donbass, could be defended. But that's a different topic.
There's ways you could do that. Even if you're in a building, you need to cross the street. You can put things above the buildings, and you can walk underneath and not be seen from the sky. You can put holes in buildings, so it's called mouse holing, very famous in urban.
So you have to destroy your own cities.
Warfare history, so you can move between rooms and move between buildings without exposing yourself. So the number one aspect of this entire defense is staying hidden until you're ready to be seen. And I'm talking massive concrete barriers, because what the urban terrain gives you, unlike anywhere else, is it gives you fighting material. You can literally take apart buildings and stack them into the street.
So you're gonna use construction equipment or something to break down buildings?
Take out entire roads away from them, because they're gonna try to find an opening. So every street, every alley, every door has to be blocked. And when I talk about blocked, I mean never stop building the barriers. If you're planning to resist, as in actually shoot at the people coming or drop Molotov cocktails at them, that has to all be
Molotov cocktails, improvised weapons like This is just sounding completely absurd.
Planned and know exactly where to do it. If you stand in the open and give up your advantages in the urban terrain, the defender will die easily. I mean, that's a given. So they can fire from within buildings. They can fire through buildings. Like in another building, you can fire through it. The attackers fear snipers. I mean, it's a nightmare. So they have to plan where to attack smartly and then have a plan to escape. The underground has always been a refuge for the urban defender. It's where you can put your civilians that you want to protect.
So they need to hole up with civilians. That's the thing about this urban guerrilla warfare, is that if you have civilians, you have to be among them. The line between civilian and soldier is blurred, and children will be put in danger if this is the path that you choose.
It's where you put your own weapons. It's where you can move and not be seen. And unlike other cities, Kyiv has kilometers and kilometers of massive underground.
So this is the kind of thing that they think Taiwan is going to subject itself to for the sake of separatism. Now, I've looked at some Western aligned polls that show an insanely high percentage of support for Taiwan independence. I mean, you look at this. Like, why are the independence numbers on the left here so much higher than the unification numbers? I'm not sure. And the Global Times claims that the US is pulling the strings between Taiwan's biased polls. So, you know, you're going to look for these polls. You'd want to figure out what Taiwanese believe. Well, they could be biased, and they are run by, you know, TEDS, right? Taiwan's Election and Democratization Study. Okay. Well, maybe I'll look into them in the future, but that is where that data is coming from. So those are the facts that I'm seeing. There is conflicting information between the East and the West, but I think that unless the Taiwanese people are willing to be extremely highly nationalistic, separatistic, and pro-Western democracy, unless the Taiwanese people basically say, in majority, or at least a strong constituency of them say, that we are willing to fight, we are willing to die, rather than reunify with the mainland. Unless that's the case, I don't even see a prolonged struggle as a possibility. And if such a struggle occurs, again, it's going to be a US-backed proxy war. The US is going to fund and train the people. In all likelihood, in all realism, I do not see Taiwan becoming an independent state. So that's my video, and I hope you like it. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you next time.